Welcome back to the program. We begin with some of your stories in brief. Now, the President, Christian Association of Nigeria, has asked the federal and state governments to be more proactive in the protection of lives and property of its citizens. He was speaking when he paid a courtesy visit to the Taraba State Deputy Governor to sympathize with the government and the people of the state over attacks by herdsmen in Lao and the recent skirmishes in Wukari that led to the loss of lives and property in the state. Elsewhere, people living with disabilities in Nigeria, they are asking the federal and state governments as well as the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to think of new ways of deepening political inclusiveness for their members ahead of the next general election 2023. Speaking against the backdrop of an alleged marginalization of its members in some voting centers during the just concluded general elections, the president of the Albino Foundation appeals for the protection of rights of people with disabilities to vote in elections. The Independent National Electoral Commission maintains that the electoral umpire has made much progress over the years trying to ensure that every eligible voter participates during elections.
Put great effort because we have worked.
It's official that the Nigerian workers, rather a worker in Nigeria, can now earn a minimum wage of 30,000 naira. And this is after President Muhammadu Buhari signed the minimum wage bill into law, making it compulsory for all employers to pay their least paid worker that amount. President Buhari says he expects Nigerian workers to show more commitment to duty and to understand the current economic situation facing the country. Our correspondent Gloria Mizuke has more. Well, Gloria Mizuke covered that story for us. But let's join our Abuja studios now as we have a guest to talk more. President Buhari has signed the national minimum wage bill into law, but yet there's still the capacity of paying, especially less financially buoyant states, to comply with the minimum wage. What essentially does this portend for the Nigerian worker? To discuss this, the president of the Trade Union Congress joins us, Boboy Kaigama, from Abuja. We'd like to thank you so much for joining us at this time. Good to see you. And what are your thoughts? I mean, the president signed this and says he expects Nigerian workers to show more commitment to duty, to understand the current economic situation. But how do you put this in line with other states who before the passage had said, where are we going to get this money? How are we going to pay? How do you reconcile the two?
Well, thank you very much. I want to seize this opportunity to thank Mr. President for assenting to the bill and the Nigerian workers for staying very, very resilient throughout the process of the tripartite meetings. So with regards to your question as to whether the states can afford to pay or not, we are pretty sure they have the political will, they have the economic will, except for the fact that corruption has eaten deep into the fabrics of the state systems. So it will interest you to know that particularly as we prepare for the governorship elections, so many of these states had outlaid money, reserved money to go out, buy voters, compromise electoral officers, compromise the security. And that is why in most of the states now, they cannot pay salaries. In fact, some of us are aware of states where they have resorted to securing bank loans running into billions, over 4 billion in one state, just to make sure that they cover part of their misdeeds.
But Mr. Kaigama, some would argue that some of these things you've mentioned are just speculations. We haven't had any court of law to indict these people, and it's just talk. But practically looking at the capacity of some of these states to pay, don't you think that it's rather unfortunate for the worker, the Nigerian worker now?
Well, it's unfortunate, but what we are saying is that we are going to assess every state based on merit, and when the template is out, the next phase is to discuss the concomitant or corresponding, the consequential increases for upon the 30,000 naira minimum wage. So states would be assessed on individual basis. So we will be able to get which state that has promised to pay and that is paying, and which states that are not prepared to pay. Then we get to them.
Talk to us about some people saying there are fears of inflation, and that even if this 30,000 is effected has been passed, that this might also affect the price of lots of commodities and the price for people or the basic Nigerian worker to afford them.
Well, we already have inflation, we already have devaluation of our naira, so it's already taking its tolls on the workers' take home. Except if we are saying that we should allow it to go to the extent of the worker not even taking a single square meal. Otherwise, where you have inflation, where you have devalued naira, the worker is at liberty. Also, he has a right to demand for a corresponding increase in his salaries to ensure that he meets other domestic demands of his family. So what we are saying is that the worker is not in control of inflation. The worker is not in control of the devaluation of our naira. All the worker is saying is strengthen the naira, make our naira, our salaries have the value, so the purchasing power, improve on our purchasing powers. See, what we want Nigerians to understand is that if we don't have inflation, a dime, and except for the fact that the country or the laws governing national minimum wage says that after every 4 or 5 years, you come back and review. The review does not mean that you always review upwards. You could review and stay stagnant. You could review and go downwards. So what we are saying is that because we've been having inflation, the purchasing powers of the Nigerian worker has diminished so much. That is why we always look for increase. So if the government is very serious, the economy is moving well, we don't control inflation, it is the government that devalues naira, it is the government that creates problems where we don't have power, we don't have infrastructure, we don't have our health systems not working. So if they have all these things in place, the worker will have enough, would have saved enough for more funds that can cater for his social needs.
We'd like to thank you, President of the Trade Union Congress, Mr. Boboy Kagama, for joining us on the program. That's where we rested this Friday. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker.